This right here is him issuing an apology for the study supporting reparative therapy. The problem with this study is that, number one, the sample size was 200 people. Number two, 150 of them or something were men, and it was done over the telephone. They were self-selected, and it was over the phone. Okay, watch this, guys. I'm gonna do a study. Ring, 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 ring. Hello. Hi, you're the person who was grew up in a homophobic household that has self-chosen to go into the study? Uh-huh. You say you were gay, and now you aren't. Amazing. I'll add you to the study. Done. Study over. Wow. Science has been done today. Amazing. The first thing I wanted to cover before the debate is this YouTube video. It is from a YouTube channel called Guide to Islam. They are a Islamic YouTube channel that basically talks about, like, you know, Muslim beliefs and the Quran and different things like that. The problem is, to be blunt, they're basically an Islamic PragerU. And the title of this YouTube video, as I move chat out of the way, is homosexuality normal? They're questioning whether it's normal or freakish behavior, quote unquote. Now, the problem right off the bat with that quote is, what do they mean by normal? Do they mean normal as in acceptable? Because if that's the question, then of course, gay people ain't hurting anybody. They're going about their own business. Do they mean by normal by statistical average? Well, then you could equally make a video about, are people with green eyes normal? Just because something's statistically smaller than another group doesn't mean they're not normal. Of course, what they mean is homosexuality harmful or is it natural? That's what they debate in this video, is that is it natural? And so I'm super excited to hear the arguments, because I don't know if many of you guys know, but I am of the queer persuasion. In fact, later tonight, I actually have a shindig with a male courter, you could say, somebody who's trying to court me, you could say. So maybe before I go on that date after tonight's show, they can convince me so I can say, nay, sir, I am no longer the queer. Please go home. So, let's see. I'm very eager to be convinced that it's not normal and that what I'm doing is of the way of the devil. Let's listen to what they got to say. We got a loading screen.
Is it normal behavior? During the time when black people were treated as slaves in Europe,
Well, that is one way to start the video. I'm sure this is going to be in completely good faith. So, number one, I don't know why you're going to start right off the bat with the enslavement of fellow man. That's the first thing I have to say. The second thing I got to say is, who is this? There is no person in my life that I have seen ever this color. This is not a black person. This is gray. This looks like an alien. You can even see where their body detaches from their waist. This is not a black person. I don't understand. But whatever. Let's. Oh boy, this is gonna be fun.
Europe and America, studies which claimed to be scientific were produced. They were undertaken by scientists who tried to show that black people belong to a subhuman race, and that
this is gonna be a science is wrong sometimes argument, isn't it? That, hey, look, science was wrong once, so you never know, it might be wrong again. Exciting.
They were closer to animals than to humans. This was an attempt under what's called pseudoscience. Are we aware that today A similar type of pseudoscience is being promoted. In 1993, Dean Hammer published a study that claimed to identify.
So I just want to say quick. So the reason why all of the phrenology and all the stuff that backed up what created the myth that white people were superior to black people and that black people were subhuman, therefore their enslavement was justified, was pseudoscience. That is true. And they would find anything they could to justify it. The thing is, that pseudoscience, though, went without peer review. It went without true scientific review. It was specifically protected by scientists who were more critical of that view, because there were scientists who were critical of that view, and those who criticized it were just thrown away as whack jobs and imbeciles. And of course, the little bit of science that they actually thought they did have, as more information came out, was thrown to the wayside. So number one, I would say that the pseudoscience of phrenology and stuff like that, like if you look at the Nazi regime, for example, is that they would not put it up for proper scientific review, and the Nazi regime specifically purged all information that did not align with that worldview. And similarly, people who wanted to maintain the institution of slavery did everything they could to stop review of black people's humanity from going under widespread scientific review, unless it is, of course, allies of the cause, quote unquote. And they didn't want the new information that was coming out that could disprove their theories from being shown to the public. Because those who wanted black people to be animals, wanted black people to be subhuman, walked back from their conclusion. So they tried to disregard this new information, and they tried to discard more widespread review of their theories and proposals. So this is not at all in any way comparable to the developments of how we view homosexuality in the United States. Because how we view homosexuality in the United States is that has developed from the pseudoscience of the idea that we can change and have make people no longer gay through conversion therapy and reparative therapy, and all these different things can make them no longer gay. These studies that thought that they could, even their own authors in many instances, like the one he mentioned, I saw his face, the one he mentioned, and I wonder if they're going to bring this up. He said that I was wrong years later, after the APA and many other people came out and said, hey, here's more information that proves you wrong. The development of scientific consensus around homosexuality was, as more information came out, it was shown that homosexuality occurred naturally in nature. Not only did it occur in other places in the animal kingdom, but that it occurred naturally within humanity since the dawn of the human species. And we can review, in many instances, how we really believe that homosexuality comes about. One of the more standing theories is that, and the one that I think has the most scientific basis and has the most proof behind it, is that homosexuality happens during development in the womb and could be due to exposure to hormones. So the idea that it's a pseudoscience when the consensus around homosexuality has changed from the pseudoscience of conversion therapy that had no real basis, from these studies that hadn't gone through proper scientific review, or the scientific review it did go through discredited it completely but was ignored. So no, this is not going to be comparable, and I can see it coming from a mile away.
A similar type of pseudoscience is being promoted. In 1993, Dean Hammer published a study that claimed to identify a relationship between gene.
Okay, so the thing is, this study that he's talking about right now, the idea of the gay gene, yeah, it's not exactly proven that there's a gay gene, but that doesn't matter. The idea that it's only genes that can affect human behavior is ridiculous. There's a lot of things that can affect human development and behavior. It can be how somebody's grown, the environment that somebody's in can affect human behavior, because, the idea of whole nature versus nurture. And for example, like I've talked about before, there's a lot of scientific consensus around the fact that hormones most likely affect a homosexual's development in the womb.
XQ28 and homosexuality. Since then, millions of dollars have been spent in trying to prove the claim. Yet, 24 years...
Okay, what they mean is not millions of dollars have been spent trying to prove the claim. It's millions of dollars have been spent in scientific research to discover if it's true. Because what this guy's trying to suggest is that, oh, they wanted to be true so bad and they pumped so much money out into it and No, it's that they were trying to review it to see if it was correct. That's how science works. We fund science, and that money then reviews stuff.
Years later, the result of all these efforts has been nil. On the contrary,
again, pointless, because the gay gene isn't the only way you could find homosexuality in humans.
Genealogy asserts that genes have nothing to do with behavioral characteristics.
So why did you even mention this? Again, then why mention it? Why not bring up the more modern studies about hormones affecting development in the womb?
Question is, why have the racist pseudoscientific claims been discarded, but homosexual pseudoscientific claims continue to be upheld?
Because number one, you haven't proved they're pseudoscientific. You proposed one theory that isn't even used widely, and then tore that down while not examining the rest of the evidence. It's not pseudoscience. And there's tons of evidence out there about how homosexuality comes about. And there's a long there's a long history of homosexuality and homosexual natures being present in human beings. Hell, even in societies where it doesn't make sense if you were trying to create somebody that was homosexual. For example, Frederick the Great was a homosexual. Any historian who isn't just brain dead would acknowledge that Frederick the Great, the vast majority of evidence points to him being a semi-closeted homosexual with multiple lovers. Or you could look at Alexander the Great, by which today's standards was a bisexual, which also, both of those go against the idea that homosexuals crush empires. Frederick the Great was one of the best leaders in Europe at the time when it comes to the development of country, the arts, and military strength. So the idea that homosexuality collapses empires like Rome is completely ridiculous. It's just people coping and seething at the fact that Rome collapsed and just trying to point the finger at the gays and women. Oh, and the Greeks, of course.
Two factors have ensured this: the homosexual lobby and the ideologized media.
And science. I mean, the thing is, the homosexual lobby is always, quote unquote, whatever you want to call it. I guess what he means is like gay activists. He calls it the homosexual lobby as if like the people who rioted at Stonewall were like all wearing suits and had big money bags and mustaches, twirling them while like putting damsels in distresses on like railroad tracks. But the thing is, the scientific consensus developed, and that helped our movement gain steam because it was shown that, hey, we can't choose to be gay. This isn't a choice we have. We can't choose our sexuality. Therefore, you should not punish or try to change people's sexuality, and trying to do so is a failing effort that just hurts the mental health of the homosexual person and of their families. And recent studies have been released that homophobia not only hurts gay people, it hurts straight people. There was a study recently released before my debate a while ago with Big Papa Fascist that showed that LGBTQ plus inclusive programs in school not only increases the mental health outcomes of LGBTQ plus youth, but also straight youth as well, because it creates a more welcoming environment for everybody, which these are great outcomes that we should be applauding if we wanted to increase the living conditions and better life of our children. But of course, homophobia even trumps trying to protect the straight kids.
Robert Spitzer is one of the most important figures in the field of psychiatry.
And by the way, let's forget this idea that it was like, oh, the Robert Spitzer. Okay, this is really interesting because this guy that he's about to bring up has apologized for his old study, saying they were completely wrong and he should have paid more attention to the critics at the time. So, but anyway, like, I don't understand like how he thinks it happened. Like, people rioted at Stonewall, and then like all the gays got like stuck in the scientific institutions and like grabbed a bunch of test tubes, just went like this and was like, aha, gays are natural. And everybody was like, I guess gays are natural. Why don't we talk about the lobbies that have fought against gay people and have been propping up videos like this? Religious institutions, conservative lobbies, evangelicals, People like Mike Pence, who was the former vice president of the United States until about 1 year ago, and he pushed conversion therapy. Even Mike Pence has abandoned the policy of conversion therapy. And we both know that that dude is a blatant homophobe. And he wouldn't abandon it unless it was completely politically unviable, and that there was basically no way to continue the idea that conversion therapy has a scientific basis. There's a reason it's been banned in Canada recently. It's because conversion therapy, in most cases, can easily be designated as torture. If you want to talk about pseudoscience, let's talk about reparative therapy. Let's talk about conversion therapy. Conversion therapy has used electroshock therapy, which is 100% just torture, where you hook up electrodes to gay people and shock them while showing them images of the same sex, and not shock them while showing images of the opposite sex. They lobotomized gay people, putting like little ice picks in their head and just going like think and trying to take out large sections of their brain. That is complete pseudoscience. And there is no evidence whatsoever of reparative therapy or conversion therapy of any sort that it is effective. And the study he's going to bring up, I can tell you about once they mention it. I see it coming from a mile away.
He played a leading role in removing homosexuality from the list of psychological disorders. Spitzer subsequently published a study showing that it is...
By the way, let's say if they source any of the studies or explain who this guy is or his credentials in the description. Nope. Very interesting.
It's possible to alter the sexual orientation of homosexuals. He described his treatment method, which uses no medical drugs, showing that it was successful in the treatment of 200 cases of homosexuality among men and women.
Okay, so let me tell you a few things about this, right? Okay, let's, give me a moment. Okay. This right here. Okay, look at this. This right here is him issuing an apology for the study supporting reparative therapy. The problem with this study, and I'll link this in chat in a moment, is that number one, the sample size was 200 people. Number two, 150 of them or something were men, so it was extremely lopsided. The sample size was self-selected, which I don't think is really the best way to be doing studies like this, definitely with such a small sample size, and it was done over the telephone. And the kicker is that all of them had gone through different types of reparative therapy, meaning it wasn't even like a general consensus. It would be like if I was like, well, I use ginger ale to cure my stomach ache, and someone else said, well, I use this pill to cure my stomach ache, and then I was like, see, obviously this works. Like, you got to be using the same treatment across the board. And immediately when this study was released, there was a ton of criticism for it. And he later came out, and this is in 2012 when he issued the apology. This is scientific, done, settled deal. It is over. He issued an apology saying that he was wrong, and if anybody wasted their time again with reparative therapy, he can't even begin to truly apologize to those people because he was completely wrong. And look, I mean, right when it was released, there was these commentaries that cited the flaws. Let's read just a tiny bit of this. The research question that Spitzer posed more than a decade ago, is reparative therapy for people who wish to change their sexual orientation effective, was a reasonable one, but the design for testing, the question, and the interpretation of the results were highly problematic, as many people pointed out when the survey was first presented at the APA's annual meeting. Survey participants were 200 self-selected individuals, 143 males, 57 females, who reported at least one minimal change from homosexual to heterosexual orientation that lasted at least 5 years. They were interviewed by telephone, using a structured interview that assessed same-sex attractiveness, fantasies, yearning, and overt homosexual behavior. The majority of participants gave reports of change from a predominantly or exclusively homosexual orientation before therapy to a predominantly exclusively orientation that year after therapy. But reports of complete change were uncommon, which would make sense if people were, say, repressing their sexuality. Spitzer concluded at the time there is evidence that the change in sexual orientation follows some form of reparative therapy does occur in gay men and lesbians. A total of 26 commentaries were published along with the study, many of them extremely negative and focusing on two main flaws. The difficulty of determining credibility of accounts of change. Yeah, because number one, they were self-selected and it was over the phone. Okay, watch this, guys. I'm going to do a study. Ring, 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 ring. Hello. Hi, you're the person who was grown up in a homophobic household that has self-chosen to go into the study? Uh-huh. You say you were gay, and now you aren't. Amazing. I'll add you to the study. Done. Study over. Wow. Science has been done today. Amazing. The failure to specify any particular type of therapy. That means it could have been like, well, I just jumped up and down until the gay was away. Well, I just drank a bunch of ginger ale till my tummy felt better. You need to have a consistent basis of therapy. Moreover, critics noted all of the reports of change from a self-selected group of people highly disposed, typically for religious reasons. Isn't that interesting? To view their homosexuality as apparent and unnatural, meaning that the people who were calling seemed to be from an extremely religious households that told them that being gay is wrong. So they were self-selected from had certain religious views that were negative towards the homosexual community, did not have a consistent basis for like what treatment they were getting. And it was over the telephone. And the vast majority of them were men. It was lopsided. With only 200 people in the sample size. Seems like some PragerU research to me, buddy.
He called it reparative therapy. No one objected to his conclusions on scientific grounds.
No, that's wrong. Everyone objected to his what do you mean? That's just a lie. They rejected to the small sample size. I object to the larger sample of men than women. People objected to the fact that they didn't even have complete change in their sexuality. I object to the fact that they had extremely religious leanings. I object to the fact that it was done over the phone. I object to the fact that it was self-selected. I object to the fact that the consistent research, that the consistent a therapy that was there was no consistent basis in the treatment giving. And not to mention, it's not just me objecting it. This was objections posed in 2001. This was objectives being thrown at the wall for 11 years. So don't say that there was no scientific basis for objection. There was a ton of scientific basis for objection.
Yet, the world's two leading health organizations severely criticized him. Both the World Health Organization, WHO, and the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, attacked him, and he was forced to apologize.
That's just a lie. He talked about that study in 2001. It took him 11 years to apologize. 11 years. By the way, look at this animation style. They're trying to I have no clue what they're trying to do here. They're trying to make them look like guys from The Wire or something. I don't know why they're like, we're gonna make you tell them that being gay is fine, see, and we're gonna chop you up with our axe. I don't know why they gave the Pan American Health Association an axe and very realistic teeth. Anyway, what he's saying is just a lie. These statements were released in 2001. It took 11 years for him to come out with an apology. 11 years. So I don't know what you mean by they bullied him. And unless you can provide me the statements they said, like, we're going to kidnap your family, that didn't happen. What he's just saying is completely incorrect. The WHO did not roll up to his house with like a baseball bat and cave in his mailboxes. That didn't happen. He's just lying. And if it was bullying that they were doing, let's say I conceded that, why did it take him 11 years after he first made the statements to issue an apology? Almost as if, as even more and more scientific data come out, he reviewed it and was like, man, if I look at these original critics and this new data, I think I was wrong. Not to mention, when he did eventually apologize, it wasn't someone came to his house like, why are you homophobic? It was like, you got any comments on this old study? And he was like, yes, I do have a comment. I was wrong. And I'm very happy to get this off my chest. Just take him at his word. Unless you're just saying this guy's lying. He specifically said, I am going out of my way to apologize because I want to get this off of my chest. That's what this guy that they've cited, that they didn't even list the credentials of, that I had to go get all this stuff for. That's what he said. We can read it. We can read this again. Look, let me see if I can. Let me still have the study. 1 second. Let me see if I can go back and get his statement real quick. Do people in the comments agree with the video? Yes, they do, which just blows me away. That just such well, the thing is, it doesn't really blow me away, if I'm completely honest. Homophobia is still very prevalent within religious communities. And these are all people walking back from the conclusion. They weren't like, let's all look at the scientific research. These are all people that want homosexuality to be unnatural. So they're just going to pretend it's unnatural and unnormal. So let's go back to this, right? Let's read from him. Let's read from this guy specifically. Gabriel said he was going to write his story and mentioned that I had my reservations about it, Spitzer told Psychiatric News. So I decided it was up to me to explain what my reservations were, rather than rely on him to tell it. Was it hard to do? Yes, it was, Spitzer said. But I can tell you, I felt better as soon as I had done it. Robert Spitzer, well-known APA member as a leader in the development of DSM, renowned as its instrumental in removing homosexuality from the Diagnostic Manual of Disorder, 1973. An author of the deeply controversial study, in a letter to the editor of the Archive of Sexual Behavior, I believe I owe the gay community an apology for my study making an unproven claims about the efficiency of reparative therapy. I also apologize to any gay person who wasted time and energy undergoing some form of reparative therapy because they believed that I had proven that this therapy works with some highly motivated individuals. He even said that, like, when I said this, it was off my chest. It was wonderful. Thank God it's gone. So unless they are saying that this guy's lying, now he's lying, and now he's not to be trusted, then why did you even trust his study in the first place? And let me say one last thing. They have been attacking science since the start of the video, right? So why is it that they don't trust the other scientists and they don't trust these scientific institutions, but they just trust this scientific man? Until he says, never mind, being gay is okay. Then we can't trust him. Everything's pseudoscience unless it agrees with me.
PAHO attacked him and he was forced to apologize.
Complete lie.
The point at issue here is, have his claims been scientifically proven wrong?
Yes. Yes. Even the scientist himself admitted. The scientist that you are citing right now, which you didn't link in the description, himself said, yes, I was wrong 10 years after he released the study. Yes.
Definitely not. The two organizations published a statement alleging that Dr. Spitzer's reparative therapy involves health risks. How?
Wait, he's not even talking about the science of it, except for like the effects on it. He's not talking about the science of if it works. Now he's going to talk about the effects of it, which, by the way, reparative therapy and conversion therapy has massive health risks. We know that when we create supporting environments for LGBTQ plus people, you increase their mental health outcomes. I already cited the study before about educational programs in school and how that helps not only LGBTQ plus people, but straight people as well. But it has widely been proven for trans and gay people that when you create supporting environments, their mental health outcomes increase. And that's why generally the mental health outcomes of LGBTQ plus people have been increasing as they continue to be normalized, and their conditions and their community is more normalized in the United States. So stuff like this that isolates them and makes them say, I don't know, maybe like YouTube videos like, is homosexuality normal behavior? Lamau, it isn't. Let me cite a scientist that doesn't even fucking agree with me. Maybe YouTube videos like this is the problem. But yes, it does have massive health risks. Not to mention, if we're talking about the health risks of the reparative therapy that they're talking about in this study, they don't even have a consistent basis of treatment. So if you don't have a consistent basis of treatment, then it 100% is a health risk on top of the mental health stuff.
They argued that it makes a homosexual man or woman feel ashamed and may even lead such a person to commit suicide.
Yes.
The two organizations also published recommendations that may be described as autocratic, trying to frighten
Autocratic?
anyone who dissents.
Wait, you can't just say it was autocratic and they were trying to frighten people. You cited their completely correct statement about it having mental health, negative mental health outcomes for LGBTQ plus people. That's true. You can't just call it autocratic and say we're trying to scare people. Say what the statement was.
They urged the enactment of legislation
There we go.
that would punish anyone who tries to promote reparative therapy for homosexuals.
Okay, when you say promote, if you mean, and let me be clear, reparative therapy, since there was no consistent basis, is extremely medically risky. Right? It would be like if we didn't have a consistent basis for abortions, and some doctors were doing like abortions and and abortions are actually like a medically tested thing that actually does what is intended to do, which is eliminate the development of the fetus. Reparative therapy doesn't even work. But it'd be like if on one angle it's like, yeah, I did abortion through, surgery. I did it through a coat hanger. Oh, I did it just by kicking the stomach. You need to have a consistent basis on how you do these things, or you're going to just have whack jobs doing crazy operations that is going to put everyone at risk. So, honestly, if they are punishing people for promoting that, it doesn't really affect me negatively. Oh my God, I'm so scared. I mean, conversion therapy was banned in Canada for a reason, because it could be easily considered torture.
They want such therapy to be outlawed.
Yes, because it's torture. It decreases the mental health outcomes of LGBTQ plus people. When you think about like the lobotomies, the not consistent medical treatment basis that you're talking about, that even the author of your study admitted to, this is extremely risky. It's the same way that coat hanger abortion should be outlawed, and you should do abortions in more medically sterile environments to help people not have complications. And at least a coat hanger abortion once in a while actually works. Reparative therapy never works.
They've even encouraged that any such activity be exposed because it represents a violation of human dignity.
Look at the grandstanding right now. It is.
Further require that
if I walked up to somebody and said, hey, I can stop anybody from being white, black, or any race, and if you give me the therapy, if you just do a therapy, it'll 100% fix it. Yeah, you're going to end up doing some pretty harmful stuff.
That individuals who promote such reparative therapy be reported to the relevant authorities. Needless to say,
by the way, I don't even know if what he's saying is 100% true right now. I'd go and do more digging, but honestly, I think from the first one, we've already kind of discredited basically the rest of this video. Like, I don't think any of this has scientific basis. And of course, he didn't cite it, so it's kind of their fault. By the way, this was uploaded in like 2018, like 3 years. 3 years after, oh my God, 3 years after the gay marriage ruling. That was during the midterms.
Such practices recall to mind the tactics of the Spanish Inquisition. It's certainly naive to assume.
The Spanish Inquisition? Just to be clear, people were executed during the Spanish Inquisition. People were burned alive during the Spanish Inquisition. A scientist saying, Lamau, you're dumb, is not the Spanish Inquisition. I didn't expect that point.
That an objective study can be undertaken in such an environment. Yet some...
Oh my God! They asked questions about my bullshit science. They asked questions about my pseudoscience that I was accusing everybody else of. This is just like when people were burned alive. This is like somebody like getting like somebody, oh my God. This is like if somebody like had like a paper airplane and threw it and it hit somebody in the head, and then they stood up and said, that was like 9/11. Like, these things are completely incomparable. And it's actually a little bit offensive to compare the two things.
Media outlets continue to describe Dean Hammer's falsehood as scientific. there is always a simple strategy: silence scientists and establish a lobby to promote.
Again, the scientist was not silenced. He came out and released that statement himself after 10 years of continuing to do science.
Your falsehood. It's a sure way for people to
Well, I want to outlaw torture too. I have a consistent outlaw policy on torture.
believe pseudoscience.
You're promoting. Oh my God, this is frustrating.
Everyone who is following the media can see the efforts made to familiarize the process of adopting children by gay parents.
Okay. So, by the way, let's be clear that a lot of people think the gay adoption thing is like a done over fight. It isn't. I had to go before my own city council and try to argue, and one of my city council representatives voted against the measure, which has completely discredited them in my view. I had to go there and argue that we should sign on to a lawsuit for gay couples who are suing adoption centers that won't adopt out the gay people that are getting taxpayer dollars, meaning that gay people are paying taxes and their tax dollars are going to adoption centers that won't even adopt out to them. So this is a real consistent issue that the gay community and the LGBTQ plus community are still facing right now.
And at the same time, they do acknowledge its impact on children's values and behavior towards sexual relationships.
What?
You can imagine a child.
You don't cite anything, just make a claim on source, put nothing in the description. Wonderful.
Raised by gay parents mingled with a
Maybe it's because as people know, I still have faith, right? I still have a certain amount of faith inside me, you know. Maybe it's because I grew up in a county that's extremely religious. Who knows? You know, local geography. But the thing is with my faith is I don't keep the idea of faith for literally everything. Like maybe they think that since they have a very predominantly religious viewing audience, that everybody will just have faith that they're telling the truth. And faith that such religious individuals wouldn't lie to them. Sadly, that isn't the case.
Community of gays. He grew up with these practices which are contrary to human nature.
It's not contrary to human nature. It's early childhood development in the womb, hormones. There's been tons and tons and tons and tons of studies showing that it's very prevalent in humans. We can go back in history to see old documented cases of homosexual behavior. Not to mention, it's not only in humans. There's homosexual behavior in lions, giraffes, and many other mammals. It'd be very weird if homosexuality was a trait found in basically every mammal, but then just famously, specifically, somehow, not in humans. But every other land mammal, but not humans.
When he wanted to change himself, live a normal life, and seek help, not only was he prevented by law, but also any attempts to help him was criminalized.
Okay. If I stood up and I said, I want to be tortured, somebody waterboard me immediately, and there was like laws against waterboarding, I mean, you know what? That's very, very sad that we won't allow you to torture yourself, but I guess that's a sacrifice our society is going to have to make to keep people safe. No straights allowed.
Is that freedom?
Wait, you can't just... What do you mean, is that freedom? This isn't a conversation about government intervention and freedom and how much freedom should people have, right? I mean, like, is laws existing freedom? Like, we outlaw practices that are widespread and harmful, and we outlaw torture for a reason. You can't just make an appeal to freedom. I don't care about freedom to the point that I'm going to. I remember there was this old thing. I forget if it was a founding father that said it, but somebody said it. That freedom should not be a suicide pact. That you cannot use freedom as something to just scream out when we're doing policies that are in the obvious welfare of the vast majority of people. Freedom is a concept that we should look at and try our best to emulate for people living their personal lives. But this also, it's really strange for them to make a claim about freedom while also trying to go after people's personal freedom to be homosexuals while discrediting science.
The Holy Quran tells us about Allah's prophet, who was sent to warn his people not to commit this disgraceful act.
Oh my gosh. I love this idea that this little visual they made. Like Allah was like, not Allah. Muhammad was riding into this local village in the Middle East on horseback, and they had a bunch of rainbow pride flags, and they were, I don't know, they were all at Lollapalooza or whatever, and they were all like at the like old like medieval rave, like all partying in their gay tents, and he came in and said, "This is sinful," and then they all stopped because it was haram. Amazing visual here.
He is the prophet Lot, peace be upon him, and he asked his people frowningly,
Wait, did the video spell holy wrong? Did it?
to warn his people. Quran tells us
They did spell holy wrong. The Holy Quran? The Holy Quran. The Holy Quran. Brilliant. Brilliant. We are fighting true intellectuals on this day.
about Allah's prophet, who was sent to
I used to have a crush on Holy Quran in high school. I love my chat.
warn his people not to commit this disgraceful act. He is the prophet Lot, peace be upon him, and he asked his people frowningly.
Wait, is he the prophet in the Holy Quran or the Holy Quran? I have questions now.
And we had sent Lot when he said to his people,
Who knew homophobia could be such a banger?
while Prophet Lot fully
I mean,
accomplished
this means nothing to me. I don't believe in this faith, so this all means literally nothing to me. I mean, like what really got me was the science, trying to root all of this in science. Like there's no scientific basis, and now they've completely just shifted to just religious ideology. Like you got hot bars, man. I just wish you weren't like going after gays with them. Like come on. Like I don't know. Maybe like the Holy Quran is that guy's album, and if it is, like, no, I'll buy it, man.
his duty, his people didn't follow him, but they accused him and his family of this weird charge.
وما كان
Okay, now he's just showing off. That's not fair. Book, I'm not trying to disrespect the Quran, but if you want to talk about disrespecting the Quran, I really think they could have actually just spelled it correctly and not call it the Holy Quran. Like, I don't know, unless this is the adapted version written by Crash Holly from the WWE, okay? Unless it was written by Crash Holly, right? Unless this guy was like, I don't know, unless this guy was the next prophet, then this is the wrong book, okay? I don't know what they're talking about. Back to where we were watching.
هم أناس يتطهرون.
So what were the consequences? God punished them with the proper punishment for their abnormal
Look at the tiny little animated bones. It's like he got the proper punishment. So are you advocating for the death penalty now? You were making a claim for freedom, and now you're like, they got the proper punishment of death. Yeah, you really care about that freedom concept, don't you?
God punished them with the proper punishment for their abnormal practices.
Proper punishment. Wait, let me, I just saw something in chat. I gotta do this. They got the proper punishment.
God punished.
Lasers, pew, 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 lightning bolts. God, man. And rain stones on them of baked clay. Well, if you one thing about the Abrahamic religions, that is basically consistent, it is their love of stoning. You know, I guess that's something all the world religions can unite about.
عليهم حجارة من سجيل.
So basically, they're like, we love freedom, guys. Is this truly the liberal idea of freedom? By the way, stone the gays. Like, oh yeah, wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much for being lovely here.
Would anyone be thoughtful?
Well, certainly not the producers of this video. What an interesting video. I have yet to be convinced to abandon my homosexual practices. Back to Gomorrah I go, I guess. God, man, I was expecting more. I was expecting more.